Welcome back all to Tachyon Transmissions. I am, of course, your host, Byron Lafayette, and I am joined by my co-host, Jordan Morris. And this is the podcast about all things Star Trek and science fiction. And we are continuing with our review and watch along of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3. And we are on the third episode, which is Shuttle to Kenfori. And this was a very interesting episode. It was an episode that we were both looking very forward to. For reasons that we will discuss soon. So before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe and share this podcast with anyone who you think likes science fiction and likes Star Trek. So let's all get aboard the shuttle and head off to Kenfori. So Jordan, Klingon Zombies, was this something you were expecting?
I need to learn to expect the unexpected because everything I expect is, well, what they do is never what I expect, but I'm kind of here for it. I don't like figuring things out before they happen, and I did not. I saw that in the teaser trailer for season 3, and I'm like, is that a Klingon zombie? Like, we haven't done a zombie. Well, I take that there is that Vulcan zombie episode in Enterprise,
I remember that one, yes.
They're not quite. They just kind of follow you around. They don't really eat you. This is legit straight up zombies. And I love how they were just sort of like, don't use the Z word.
Yeah.
But
I enjoyed that a lot.
no, it was, I did not have it in my expectations, my bingo card, however you want to phrase that. But I think this is my favorite episode of season 3 so far.
I would definitely agree with you. This is my favorite episode as well. I thought it was really tightly paced. I enjoyed how they took it in a lot of different directions, that it wasn't just, Klingon zombies. It wasn't just horror. There was a lot of different elements there. And to give everybody a little bit of a backstory of how this episode, kind of starts out, really it is Pike needing to save his girlfriend, pretty much. That when we had kind of left her in previous episodes, everything seemed like it was okay. Her body was reabsorbing the Gorn DNA. She was recovering. And then we find out in this episode that she has taken a turn for the worst. And we have the horrible moment where, Pike is going in to see her, finds her collapsed on the floor. And we basically find out she's dying, and she only has a few days, before she perishes from the Gorn DNA in her system that is just wreaking havoc with her. And then Spock ends up finding this potential cure, which is in this certain flower that is very rare in the galaxy, and that has the ability to, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Jordan, but basically can merge and make it so that your DNA is not in conflict with itself anymore. Would you say that's somewhat correct?
Yeah, it allows it helps substances to diffuse through cell membranes, and I'm not going to go into any more detail because I'm an engineer, not a doctor. So I just wanted to say that. But yeah, and that whole sequence with the flower is very original series-esque to me. Wouldn't you agree?
Very much so. It had that feel very much.
Yeah, I felt that, and I enjoyed that, and of course, the Chimera blossom, and I'm like, it is interesting.
Absolutely, and I really I really liked the trope, in the sense of like, oh, we found what we need. It's on this abandoned planet. Nobody is allowed there anymore. It's a restricted zone. We have a Klingon beacon saying turn around or die. Like, oh, I just loved all of that. I thought that was all really fun.
That, and then the banter between M'Benga and Pike. Like, you remember we smoked those cigars, or the last time I flew and you puked?
Yeah. I feel like we haven't had a huge amount of interaction between Pike and M'Benga. Like, we know they're friends, but like we haven't I feel like we haven't had a lot of time where they're kind of paired up together. So I really enjoyed that.
Same here.
You know, and I also, you know, I think it's just interesting sending the good doctor, you know, back to kind of face some of his darker past with the Klingons. I think is really interesting. You know, he's been constantly trying to, you know, run from his past as, you know, I can't remember, what did they call him? He had a certain name in Klingon. I can't remember what
The
it was.
Butcher of Jagal.
Yes, the Butcher of Jagal. You know, that it's like he's been trying to escape this, and he just never seems like he can. Um, you know, but you know, I guess let's talk a little bit about you know, before we unpack some of the plot elements on the planet and some other stuff with like Ortegas and everything. You know, what did you think? I felt like they are gearing up for something with with Batel. Like I feel like there's something you know, strange going on with her. Would you agree with that mind meld, that freaky mind meld that happened?
Oh yeah, it's like she's got like a second consciousness. Like, I hate to say it because I like Patel, but something she and Pike are either going to have to break up or something's going to have to happen to her. I think. Just, you know, he ends up back with Vina when Spock takes him back to Talos 4 in the menagerie. So if Marie was still around and when Pike had his accident, she would have been there for him. And the fact that she's not makes me think something bad's going to happen to her.
I completely agree because, you know, definitely something monstrous is coming, I think we could say, because, you know, we saw how, you know, Spock lost control when he mind melded and turned quite violent. And I thought it was also interesting that when we see things from Spock's point of view, it's tinged with green. Uh, and then we also see whatever in that mind meld, whatever that creature was that was roaring. As far as I can tell, it wasn't a Gorn, was it? It seemed like it was something else.
I thought it was a Gorn, but it was just a really weird perspective.
Okay. You know, so I guess, you know, you know, I agree. I think something bad is probably going to happen. Uh, you know, what are some theories that you think, you know, could it be? Do you think that she's going to turn into something else, or you know, because I feel like we did have that line that Pike makes with when he's down on the planet, where he mentions what will she be, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
You know, is she going to be like a new sect of Gorn that looks like the ones that Kirk fights in the original series? Is she? Um, who knows? Like, there could be. Go
I'm
ahead.
I'm so glad you brought that up about the original series, because that was a thought that I had, because I really do like that Strange New Worlds so far has been really good at patching their canon to make sure things don't overtly go against canon for the most part. Like I really liked how you know, when Trelane, you know, came in Wedding Bells Blues, that a lot of people were like, well, how in the world could Spock not recognize him in the original series? But we see that they actually came up with the fix for that he sees him as an Andorian. And,
Yes.
you know, and so I like how they put these little fixes in. And so I kind of had that thought that I wondered, like, okay, is she going to transform into a more humanoid Gorn? And then maybe is she going to have to be sent back to the Gorn homeworld? Maybe,
Thought the exact same thing.
you know, which would be interesting, because then she might be the mother of this new subspecies.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
You know, which I think would be a very interesting, because I really kind of don't want, I hope that we don't get this kind of whole like body horror transformation where, you know, she ends up having to be killed off. You know, I feel like that would be kind of sad, you know, with everything that Pike has gone through and knows he's going to go through. But I think it would be very interesting if she turned into something else and he almost had to let her go, basically. You
Oh
know, so
yeah.
I don't know. It'd be interesting. So just a theory, but one that I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with it.
And I agree with you. Like, I don't want them to kill her off. If she has to, you know, go somewhere else because of her condition, okay. But like, don't just like put her down. That just, yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like that either. She's a character who we have, we followed along with for this whole series. We have some attachment to. We obviously see how much Pike cares for her. So I definitely hope that they don't go that route, because I think that would just be really, really tragic and really sad. So but kind of continuing on from there, in the previous episodes we've talked about in our podcast, that we've mentioned how we've liked seeing the development of Ortegas, and I feel like I like that we've gotten more focus for her in this episode as well. That's very interesting. Like, what did you think about her B plot in this in Shuttle to Kenfori?
I'm glad we got some more character development for her. I wish it was a little bit more on the positive side, but after what she went through, I don't blame her for having some PTSD, but like literally just saying, okay, I'm gonna make sure they see us, so you have to do it my way. Like, she's lucky she didn't end up in the brig.
Honestly, yeah, Pike would have thrown her in the brig.
Pike would have thrown her in the brig.
Yeah, I definitely, I agree with you. I like we're getting more character development. I do agree that I'm not crazy about them taking her down, the whole spiraling into insubordination type direction. I'm not crazy about it, but I am interested to see where they continue, where they take it. I'm interested.
Same here.
Mhm.
Because she's a good character. I hope they're not using this to write her out to bring Sulu in, because Sulu's gonna have to come in. But don't I don't like you said with Batel, don't use this to like boot Erica to bring Sulu in. Like, I want more Erica.
That's really that's an interesting idea that I had actually not considered. Uh, it does make sense. I think if you follow the logical conclusion, like you said, Sulu does have to come in, where, they basically have said they're taking the series up to day one of Kirk taking over the Enterprise. So that's fascinating. I could definitely see that direction. As you said, I hope that they don't take her in that negative a direction. Like, if they do have to remove her, to have Sulu come in, I hope that maybe it's still a little bit more of a positive transition. That, I don't know, if they take her down this road, maybe she discovers she's not in the right job anymore or something, and she wants to, follow her truth, as they say, to another profession or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm not ready to say goodbye to Ortegas yet.
Me neither. Yeah, she's too good of a character. You can't
Mhm.
just like kick her to the curb so quick.
I definitely agree. She has chemistry with all the other characters, and yeah, like, if they have to remove her, I would definitely like to maybe see it wait till season 4 at least.
Mhm.
And then give us a little bit more time, with Sulu. That being said, I definitely could see them accelerating her leaving the show, especially if there is plans for a Star Trek Year One, that they might want to have a Sulu be more established in the show before then. Who knows? We'll see, but definitely hope that we get more Ortegas before she's gone. Um, you know, uh, what did you think of Una this episode? Because we kind of saw her more in a captain's role for an extended period of time than I feel like we have seen her in previous episodes. How did you feel about Captain Una?
So I like that she's in a more of a command role. We got to see most of the other first officers. We get to see in the more of a command role. She's done some, but she also pulls like double duty and can run the helm or a different station. I don't know what happened. Like, I feel like she lost a bet with her hairdo.
Oh,
Reddit was joking that she looked like the ugly stepsister from Shrek 2 with her hair, which is a bit harsh because she's, yeah, I mean, she's a very attractive woman. So it's like, it just was, I don't know. The hair threw me a little bit, not gonna lie. But no, seeing her in the command, like, because in beta canon she goes on to captain the Yorktown for quite a number of years, and ends up becoming a Commodore. I mean, obviously they don't have to follow that, but like, you know, even in Lower Decks, there's a reason she's still on the cover of the recruitment poster. So she's got a lot more to go in her Starfleet career.
Absolutely agree. And yes, that hairdo was certainly a choice by whoever came up with
it
that.
was.
When she first came in, I was like, oh wow, we're doing this. Okay. You know, and yeah, it just kind of continued on. And I mean, I almost want to say, you know, that hair was like a whole nother character, a guest star, you know, of this episode. So,
Yeah, Pike's Peak and Una's.
absolutely.
I don't even know what you call it.
I know it's true. Yeah, like I want to come up with a name for it because it was just like yeah, it was definitely interesting. Yeah, so I'm curious to see where they're going with that. You know, I did like that, you know, even though I wasn't crazy about the decision to take Ortegas into, you know, an insubordination subplot, I do think it was interesting to pair that storyline with Una because, you know, we saw Una herself basically committing insubordination by being a member of Starfleet with her background. And and so I think it was definitely interesting to juxtapose. I can't say my brain is not working. Juxtaposition. Yes,
There you go.
juxtapose. Yeah, there we go. You know, those two characters in that type of a storyline because it, you know, it almost could be like, oh, is that part of the reason why Ortegas felt she could get away with it, you know, with Una? You know, that she could absolutely not get away with this with Pike, but like, you know, this character who has already been insubordinate herself, you know, is that maybe why she felt comfortable going that direction? I don't know. I thought that was a little interesting.
I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. That is interesting.
Mm-hmm. You know, so, you know, I definitely think that we are not done with the Una Ortegas storyline. I feel like that is going to be something they continue on through this season.
Oh, I would agree for sure.
You know, one thing, you know, you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, the banter and the friendship, you know, between M'Benga and Pike. And you know, I really liked that they paired them together on this planet because I think there's a lot of characters, you know, I think the obvious choice would have been sending Spock and Pike down onto the planet, but I'm really glad that they resisted that urge.
Yeah, you need to show more relationships and, you know, just interactions between different characters. And like, I loved the two of them together.
Mm-hmm. They were a lot of fun together. I really continue to really like the kind of playfulness of Pike, you know, that it would be so easy to have him be this completely stoic commander, you know, and I really like that that he's not that way, that we see him be emotional. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Oh, same here.
You know, so, you know, getting on to obviously what I think everybody has been waiting for us to talk about, which is the Klingon zombies, and also Federation zombies too, because there's actually a mix of both of them in this. You know, how did you feel they handled them? You know, with like how they were created, how they were portrayed. Do you think that that the episode hit it out of the park with that?
A lot of people are like, well, the zombies really, it's like, well, I mean, there's a lot of like fungi and organisms that, you know, they inhabit like a dead host and they still can, like, you know, control the nerves. And it was actually, for the most part, for being like zombies, it was actually relatively feasible, at least to me. I didn't have a problem with it. It was an a very interesting like way to go. I was okay with it. They were pretty graphic, and they like the whole like disemboweling, like you know, finding that Klingon foot, you know, sticking out. But yeah, I was okay with the zombies. How about yourself?
Yeah, I was too. You know, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect, you know, because I wasn't sure what direction. I'm glad that they kept the zombie virus kind of rooted in like the science of Star Trek. I thought that it definitely didn't take the show too much out of believability. I liked that. Like you said, they definitely had the the graphicness, the foot, them eating the Klingon. They definitely I like that they didn't fully shy away from that, that they kind of kept that in. So I enjoyed that. I also like that they had a bit of the jump scares too. Like
Yes.
when Pike is right up against that window and then the zombie jumps up on it. I liked that. So there was definitely some good moments with it. And I think it also worked really well too of the station being so overgrown and like the zombies kind of living in the underbrush. I liked that that little touch.
So, fun fact, I haven't confirmed this, but Kenfori is a classic horror actor from like the 80s who was in like Dawn of the Dead for sure and some other zombie movies. So the whole thing, Shuttle to Kenfori, I think is a tribute to him.
That is really clever. I did not know that.
I just saw that the other day. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
That's really cool. See, I like when they do those kind of things and put those tributes in, because that's really cool. What I also liked as well was that they, I liked that this episode wasn't just about the zombies. Like this wasn't just a, gore and action episode. Like they actually added a lot of story beats from previous episodes in there and added some emotional moments I felt in there. I think we can probably talk a little bit now about like the Klingon hunting party that came down.
Oh yeah.
Was very, very interesting. I liked that they brought in live Klingons to be in this storyline as well. Their entrance I thought was very good. I liked seeing the ship flying in to the planet.
You can never go wrong with the D7.
So you can never go wrong with it. Yes, and I think we had talked a little bit about some musical notes there that played over the course of that. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I was watching it. I've watched it twice. When the Klingon hunting party first shows up in the facility, there's a bit of here's a bits and pieces of the classical Klingon theme, which is always great, but there's a little bit of an undernote in the bass line, and it's extremely like reminiscent of Undiscovered Country. I'm listening to it and I'm like, oh my God, that's straight out of Undiscovered Country. I've noticed other people on social media have also talked about that. So definitely worth like listen to it again and maybe pull up the soundtrack to Undiscovered Country on YouTube and check it out. But it added to the ambiance of the episode for me. It really connected. Like, I don't know. It was so good to see Klingons back again. And then having those musical cues just connect them to previous iterations of Klingons that we've seen before just really, really pulled me in.
Absolutely. And I love that that the Klingons are finally back to the more TNG style. I really like that. Oh, and it's like I remember, it's been a work in progress. I remember in Strange New Worlds, the first time they showed the Klingon, it still was a little Discovery-esque for my taste, but it still worked. But I'm so glad that we're back to normal now.
Now, if we can get the silver armor instead of the gold armor, I'll be happy. I don't know. I like the silver better myself.
I agree with you. I'm much more partial to silver than gold. So yeah, maybe, who knows? Maybe I'm sure we're going to be getting more Klingons over the course of the next 2.5 seasons. So I'm hoping maybe we kind of start leaning a little bit more into that. Would be great. I also wouldn't mind, with Strange New smooth forehead Klingons show up. I would not mind seeing that again. Tying into TOS.
I would be more than happy, and make them more of the outcast Klingons with a subplot there.
That would be really interesting because, yeah, I've always loved with Trek whenever they, whenever they do Klingon subplots, they're always so good in Trek. So I'm definitely down for more Klingon. And speaking of Klingon subplot, we got a very interesting subplot that I was not expecting to revisit in this episode.
Oh no, not this soon for sure.
Yeah, I was very surprised that we revisited the mysterious death of I cannot remember his name, the ambassador.
Ambassador Dak'Rah.
Yeah, Dak'Rah. That I did not actually think that we were going to revisit it at all, or at least I didn't expect it until way later in the series. And this subplot was fascinating. So for the viewers to catch them up a little bit, basically, we have the daughter of Ambassador Dak'Rah hunting down M'Benga because he killed her father. Now, what I loved was that they turned the trope on its head, that he thinks she's coming for vengeance, and she is, but the twist is that she was the one who wanted to kill her father.
Yeah, that one was that. I did not see that coming, but I was here for it.
I was totally here for that. That I loved that she hated her father because he had gone, to the side of the Federation, and that she viewed him as a war criminal, not for the actions he took as a Klingon, but for the actions of joining with the Federation. It was a great, it was a great little, subversion, I thought. And so basically she wants to kill M'Benga because she didn't get to kill her father and lost her honor. And I thought that was very interesting.
And I love how they touched about how her entire family has been received his commendation, like Worf did in Sins of the Father and TNG. So we've seen this before. We know what it does to Klingons and how they perceive it. So it's not like, oh, he just dishonored our family. Like, no, like stuff went down. Like our whole family has been shunned, and we have a frame of reference for that because we've seen it before.
Exactly, where that they literally lose everything. They lose their political standing, they lose their property. It's literally cataclysmic to your entire family line if this happens.
Yes, exactly.
And yeah, so it really did add a lot more weight to her story and her character, like you said, having seen this before. And I thought it was I really liked the touch that she sacrifices herself, so that they can get out, not for any reasoning of, oh, she's had a change of heart, but that it's the only way she can reclaim her honor, which I thought was really interesting.
Yes, that whole adage about like honor is more important than life itself that certain cultures follow.
It's true, and I loved the line of Pike when Pike says, well, no one will ever know, and he says, well, she will know and I will know, and it was like, I love that line.
Yeah, that was great. And M'Benga's just like conversations with her, and like when she said, did you kill my father, or did you assassinate him? And he admits, he's like, yeah, I straight up killed him. I could have stopped myself, but he had it coming, and I don't feel bad about it. And I commend Pike for being a friend to M'Benga, but also like the guy straight up murdered somebody on your ship. He took it a little, I don't know. It seemed like he took it he was a little too okay with it for Pike.
I agree. Yes, I felt that way as well, because Pike is definitely, he's a Federation officer.
Well, he's the Boy Scout, like they call him.
Exactly. And like I kind of would have liked if maybe they would have added a little bit more to that conversation that they had, where where maybe we reveal about some experiences Pike had maybe during the Klingons, war, with the Federation or something, to add a little bit more reasoning of why he would be willing to let this go. I don't know, just some line of like, well, I saw my share of massacres as well, or something like that, I don't know. I would have liked a little bit more maybe to why he made that decision personally.
I think they left that alone because they talk about in Discovery how they kept the Enterprise out of the fighting during the war. So if they lost, there was a beacon of hope for humanity.
I
But
remember that. Uh-huh.
they needed, but you're right though, they needed something else. Like there either needed to be a bit more of a moral dilemma, a difference of opinion. Like it just was like, yeah, you're my friend and you helped me out, so okay, we're cool. Like it's like, this is off the book, so I can't report it, but like
No, exactly. Like I would have liked to have seen him be very opposed to what he did, but like you said, maybe there's something of like, well, I can't afford to get rid of my only doctor right now, or you're saving my girlfriend. It's like kind of,
yeah, exactly.
I would have liked to have seen a little bit more there. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little disappointed that we found out exactly what happened in that episode with the ambassador and M'Benga, because I kind of liked before how they left it up to your imagination.
It's Inception. It's better to you make up your own determination versus them tell you.
Uh-huh.
Because
Exactly.
like at the end of Inception where the top's spinning, it wobbles just a little bit, but is it just your perspective, or did it hit a speck of dirt? Sometimes questions are better left unanswered. Like, there's people that speculate, well, we need an origin of the Borg. Do we really? Like,
exactly.
is it better? Is the mystery of them and not knowing where they came from make them scarier than knowing where they came from? It all depends on how it's written, but yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I completely agree with you. Like, yeah, I don't want to see an origin of the Borg because I think it's more interesting and, like you said, scary and mysterious. And like what I would have rather them done was I liked him admitting to killing him on the roof. But then I would have liked maybe in that conversation with Pike that Pike makes some type of comment about it, and M'Benga just says, well, you had a knife to your throat. I would have said anything to save you. It's like, and have him say that, where then it kind of tips it back to where you don't know, well, was he telling the truth in that heated moment, or was he just lying to save Pike?
Yeah, because Pike says that line and it ends up being like, oh, well, you said that, so that's what would be in my report. So I'm not going to say anything. But like, if you have M'Benga say it, then it's sort of like you said, it keeps a bit more of the mystery in it.
Exactly. And also it gives Pike an out at that point.
Exactly.
Because if you have it where, Pike is kind of like, he thinks maybe this is what really happened, but then he's like, well, I would have said anything to save you. That was just a story on the roof for her benefit, and then, you kind of leave it. Maybe you have a lingering glance of Pike when he's leaving the room or something, that's like, you don't know. That's how I would have preferred them play it personally.
Yeah, and then I would have ended it on that shot. Not that he didn't need to go talk to Batel, but like, she should have told him. It's a whole Gen Z thing, well, it's like, well, I didn't like, you would have demanded this and this, and it's like, yeah, he's your significant other. Of course he would want what's best for you, like, but also you cutting him out of the decision, it's like, quit taking like love lessons from Nurse Chapel, okay? Jeez.
Yeah. Exactly.
Too soon?
No. Hashtag too soon. No, I completely agree. Because like, yeah, he's your significant other, you both love each other. You would think that you would want him to be a part of that conversation, and especially, Pike is going to take this very seriously because he knows what's in his future of what's going to happen to him physically. And so, he is looking at her saying, you're doing this very, very risky, medical procedure that could turn you into a monster, possibly, is that really worth it? And so I think it was definitely interesting. And I think, like you said, very, very Gen Z idea.
Exactly. So it wasn't also like, the only other thing I want to nitpick is like, I know Pike was trying to communicate with the Klingon, the daughter of Ambassador Dak'Rah, but like, I did laugh when she just walks up and stabs him, and he's like, "I should have seen this coming." I'm like,
Yeah,
I want to be like, "No shit, Sherlock." I mean,
yeah,
really?
yeah. You don't get between a Klingon and their target, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you see a Klingon with a Doc Tog, just get out of the way.
Uh-huh.
Just get out of
Exactly.
the way.
Oh, now that brings up something, him being stabbed, that it reminded me. Uh, have we ever seen that Klingon whip before? I feel like we haven't, or did I miss that in another show?
Oh, you're gonna make me rack my brain here. That is an excellent question. I do not believe we have. There may have been something. I don't know. There may have been a Klingon in the background with a whip at Rurapente in Undiscovered Country, but it's not like that whip where it's almost like. I mean, that looked like something straight out of Castlevania, you know?
Yeah, like it was like because I always had thought that was just part of her uniform, that it was like, some type of a sash or armor or something. And when she pulled that off and like whipped that, I was like, oh dang, that's awesome. Yeah, I was
Oh,
like,
heck yeah!
uh that was really, really cool. So I appreciate and I like how they keep bringing in new weapons for the Klingons, like we saw with Worf in Picard season 3.
Oh yeah,
So
for sure.
so I definitely appreciate that. But yeah, so definitely an interesting episode. I thought overall they did a pretty good job handling the different characters, um and balancing kind of the different storylines, and kind of frankly giving us a few surprises that we didn't see coming.
Yeah, and like you had said earlier, there was a lot more depth to what we thought was going to be a zombie episode. Like, it was more of like an episode that just happened to contain zombies.
Absolutely, yes. It was very, it just, yeah, it was an episode that just happened to contain them. And I liked that, because it added a little bit more storyline, too, because I often think back to, like, I don't know if you have seen the X-Files or not.
Oh yes, had
Okay.
nightmares about it for years as a
Oh,
child.
yes. Like I think back to the episode of Millennium, which was a backdoor series finale for the TV show Millennium, that
Yes.
was canceled. And I remember, like, being really excited for this like zombie episode in, X-Files. And I remember being kind of disappointed with it, because it turned out that there wasn't a lot of depth to it. There wasn't a lot, it was basically just Mulder and Scully shooting zombies. And I was kind of like, I mean, it wasn't a bad episode, but I was a little disappointed with it. And so I'm glad to see with Strange New Worlds that they actually gave us a really nice episode, to go along with their Klingon zombies.
Yeah, same.
Mhm. So what are you expecting in the rest of this season that will follow up on this episode? Because I feel like they left a few dangling threads for future episodes to continue.
Oh, for sure. We're definitely going to see more with Erica. And who knows what's going to happen with Batel? Is she going to turn into a Gorn or something new, or who knows? I'm really excited for this week. This week's episode is a space adventure hour. It's directed by the greatest beard of the 24th century himself, Jonathan Frakes. He called this, it's a murder mystery, and it's set on like a prototype holodeck on another planet, and it's the TNG yellow and black grid.
Oh, I
Um,
love it.
and Jonathan Frakes himself said this is the best episode of television he's ever directed. So high praise, because
Wow.
he's directed. Oh God, I mean, continuously since the early '90s. So the guy's done a ton of TV. Um, but it looks, I don't know, seeing them all in different characters. Kirk's back next week, so I'm really looking forward to this. But to be more specific, yeah, like Patel, Ortegas, Will maybe Ortegas's brother comes back, and he seems to be very interested in Uhura, and maybe he'll help settle her down with the issues she's having. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure where we're going, but that's kind of half the fun.
No, I agree, that it is fun, being kind of in the dark and like trying to figure out, hey, what's going to be happening, over the course of these next 7 episodes. And and I kind of appreciate, and I think it's interesting too, that we thought in episode 1 that the Gorn were going to be gone, and that that storyline was over. And I kind of like that there's still kind of this specter or shade of the Gorn that is still over the Enterprise right now, with with Batel, with Ortegas. I kind of like that. I'm digging it.
I just thought about it. If she does start to mutate at something, how's Erica going to react if Batel mutates? It may set her off even more.
That is really interesting. I didn't even think about that, because we see that it appears she's seeing possibly visions of the Gorn, because we saw in that reflection.
Mm-hmm.
So that is fascinating. This could set up a very interesting storyline between those two, and where that's going to take them. That could be fascinating. For all we know, we might be seeing, if she does mutate into something and has to go back to the Gorn homeworld, is that Ortegas that's going to be taking her? We could see, this will be interesting.
I love how you use fascinating there, by the way. That's good. That's great.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, it could, like, I don't know. It just, the plot thickens, for lack of a better term. So
absolutely. Yeah. Like, I'm very glad that, it's been we had a long break in between seasons, and, we've seen before how TV shows that come back from a long hiatus sometimes aren't as good as they were before. And I'm very glad that they haven't really missed a lot of steps. Now, I will say, so far the high watermark has been season 2. But so far, this season has been very strong, and I've been very glad to see that.
Yeah, this has definitely been the most consistent of the new Treks. There's been bangers in season 1, season 2, and it's really strong start to season 3. Whereas like Picard and Discovery, there's definitely seasons that are clearly much worse than other seasons, or much better, depending on how you want to look at it. But like, for the most part, like, we haven't had a truly dreadful episode. I will say, episode 6 of season 1, with the one about the child who the computer takes over to run for the next 5 decades. I was not a fan of that one.
I'm trying to remember. Was that one the fantasy episode?
No, this is the one where you meet, like, that girl Pike knew from a previous away mission.
Yes,
And yeah, I was not apparently that's based on an Ursula K. Le Guin story, but I was not a big fan of that one personally.
I remember that one. I remember thinking that one was kind of in the mid-level as well. I was like, yeah, I wasn't thrilled with that too. So yeah, I mean, I guess though, when you think about it, if that's the most dreadful episode of the series so far, they're doing pretty good.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like, I mean, consistent, like, yeah, if that's your low end, you got a really high floor. So
absolutely, man. Well, any final thoughts, Jordan, before we wrap this episode up?
No, I'm just looking forward to what's coming the next few episodes. I love how this I don't know, this week was probably the most, how do I want to phrase it? Maybe connected or closest to the original series that I felt of this show. Just the whole plot with the flower and beaming down to the planet, and the captain and the doctor together. It felt very reminiscent of the original series, and I am here for that. And as much of that as they want to do, I will eat up with a spoon.
Absolutely in agreement there. It felt very classic Trek. The away mission, the menu, it just everything about it was great with that. So I completely agree. Yeah, I'm looking forward to what's coming next, and especially looking forward to next week with the return of Paul Wesley as Kirk and Jonathan Frakes. I think it's going to be a really good episode. I'm looking forward to it. So. Well, all thank you for listening to our breakdown of Shuttle to Kenfori. We hope you enjoyed it, and hope that you like and subscribe, and that you join us next week as we continue our journey through Strange New Worlds Season 3.